Greetings, gentle viewers. I'm George from Ireland. Here I am on Chain Walk in London. Behind me is number 4 Chain Walk with the green door, and that is Michael Bloomberg's residence in London. So he bought that in 2015 for goodness knows how many million, because his longtime girlfriend is British, so he comes here quite regularly. So Michael Bloomberg, you might just have heard of him, is one of the richest men in the world. So he's got Bloomberg, the channel about finance, and obviously made a fortune in high finance himself over the years. Well, what else about him? In case you don't know, he was mayor of New York for 2 terms, and he was in the Republican Party. Remember, the Democrats have been quite strong in that city till the 1990s. Was it 93 when Giuliani took over? And then he was meant to serve 2 terms. People were pleading with him to change the rule to serve longer after 9/11 because he handled that situation with a sureness of touch that was difficult to emulate. But anyway, he didn't, and Michael Bloomberg served on. But Bloomberg's controversial for all sorts of reasons. His stop and frisk policy, his remarks coming out about saying that almost all the crime was in ethnic minority areas, things like that. There was some contentious actions the police took, shooting people dead when others said that was completely unnecessary. And he's told some ribald jokes which wouldn't bother me one whit, but would outrage others. So he switched allegiance from the Republicans to the Democrats. And remember, when Trump was barreling towards the nomination in 2016, Bloomberg denounced him, saying that he was loathsome. Well, Bloomberg was certainly on the money with that one. So Michael Bloomberg is 78 years old, and he'd been musing about seeking the presidency for some time, but he thought on the basis that he's a Jewish New Yorker and actually quite short, all this would redound to his disadvantage. He might be right. Obviously, there is some anti-Semitism in the United States. I like to think not that much, but perhaps there's been a spike in it with shootings at synagogues with Trump. Even though he seems to be a Philo-Semite to me, is willing to get into bed with anti-Semites. Can't bring himself to speak out against the Ku Klux Klan. Anyway, so Bloomberg sought the Democratic nomination. He didn't get very far. It would have been a good choice in some ways to appeal to people who probably voted Republican. It would be difficult to paint him as far left. He certainly has experience. He's got the name recognition. He can completely self-fund and all the rest of it. But he has at least promised to open his checkbook to whoever the Democratic nominee is, because it's so crucial to get Donald J. out of office. So that would help the Democratic war chest considerably. The trouble is, if Bernie Sanders gets the Democratic nomination, he's so holier than thou that he wouldn't touch a penny of this tainted money, as he would see it. So that's Bloomberg. I know people said if he'd been the candidate, he wouldn't have offered enough change. He was against publicly funded healthcare and all sorts of things that the Democrats think would appeal to millennials, and perhaps he put off some ethnic minority voters who are quite loyal quite loyal vote bank for the Democrats. So Chain Walk is one of the most desirable streets in London. It's in the borough of Kensington and Chelsea, the royal borough, I should say. There are 2 separate ones, Kensington and Chelsea, where they're amalgamated together, goodness knows how many years ago, almost a century ago, because they had 2 separate town halls, but now it's just one borough. Why? I know it wasn't why Kensington was the royal borough, because it's Kensington Palace. Not sure quite why Chelsea is. Maybe it wasn't the royal borough, just got added to Kensington. So many distinguished personages lived up and down this street. I shan't tell you all of them, but Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, lived here. The Marquis of Ripon, who was Viceroy of India, he lived on this street. And in that blue plaque on his house is for George Eliot, the authoress. George Eliot was actually Mary Ann Evans. She dressed as a woman, everybody knew she was a woman, but when she published her books, she just used as a pseudonym to be taken more seriously because there was such gender prejudice. So Bloomberg's house is right beside the Cypriot High Commission, because Commonwealth countries, as in former British colonies, so they want to be part of the Commonwealth, they don't have embassies in each other's capitals, they have high commissions, I think to signify they're not totally foreign to each other. Anyway, that is the Thames. You can see how close he lives to the River Thames, which is part of the reason it's so pricey to live around this highly delightful area, very close to Chelsea Physic Garden, which is up there, that wall, that low wall. Okay, so I don't think he's in residence at the moment. The curtains are down, not seeing anybody going in and out. That's enough from Michael Bloomberg's house in London.